Welcome to the 7th Golden Age Expo and Summit. In this session, we're going to talk about nurturing professionals in long-term care. I'm Carmen, the General Manager of Elderly Services of the Hong Kong Housing Society. It is my great pleasure to be the facilitator today, and we are honored to have two overseas speakers in this session. They're Professor Gillian MANTHORPE, the Director of the NIHR Policy Research Unit in Health and Social Care Workforce, and the Professor of Social Work of King's College London, and Ms. Ada CHENG, the CEO of Australian Nursing Home Foundation Limited. Thank you, Jill and Ada, for joining us today.
Thank you.
In this session, we'll first invite each of the speakers to share their wealth of experience and insights to address the challenges brought by the rapidly aging society, in particular the shortage of manpower for long-term care services. Then we'll have a panel discussion, which will further deliberate on the current atmosphere of long-term care workers and what the practical solutions are in nurturing long-term care professionals. To begin with, let's welcome again our first speaker, Professor Gillian MANTHORPE. Jill is the Director of the NIHR Policy Research Unit on Health and Social Care Workforce and Associate Director of the NIHR School for Social Care Research. She's the Team Lead for Social Care and Executive Board Member of the NIHR Applied Research Collaboration South London, chairs the NIHR Policy Research Program Committee. She's also Professor of Social Work at King's College London. Her particular research interests are in policy, workforce, care practice, and aging. Jill, please.
Good. And welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to talk to people from a different part of the country. I've been to Hong Kong many times and enjoyed meeting people working in services and also individual people living in Hong Kong. So it's really nice to be with you in some sense. I'm going to be talking about policy measures and English experience. Obviously, one of the things you do when you talk internationally is perhaps tell people the good things that are happening. But I wanted to draw to your attention some of the difficulties we're experiencing in England at the moment. I'm going to refer mainly to England. There are countries in the UK. England is also joined by Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. But my focus today is on England because our system is slightly different. So let's think about England and our social care context. First of all, just making the point that most social care, that's care not provided by health services, is in England provided by businesses that are for profit. Some of them are very, very large. Some of them are very, very small. Most services are care homes, either with or without nurses. And then there is a large home care provision as well, often again run by small businesses. And many people receive public funding for this, but large numbers also pay for themselves through their own savings, income, or capital. And a very important point that I think we are only realizing relatively recently in England is that a lot of social care is not for older people. It is for other adults with disabilities, disabilities that they've acquired in childhood or at birth, disabilities that they've got as they've grown up, but also disabilities and illnesses that might have arisen through accidents or certain devastating events. So this is a group that we must pay attention to. They are getting older. Most people with disabilities now live older into old age, and it's a very important group to take account of. I'm going to tell you about a little bit about the demand side for social care as we see it. And I think when always we talk about supply, we must talk about demand, mustn't we? And try to get our understanding very much so. Perhaps we need to move on for talking about more older people to being very clear about which older people we mean. And in particular, as I've mentioned, to talk about people who are aging with disabilities. We have these numbers, nearly 2 million people asked for social care support in the year 20 to 21. That, of course, may not be a typical year because we were right in the middle of our pandemic then. But just capturing together 4 of the main points. Excuse me. Demand is up for adults, not older people. And as I've mentioned, there is this increasing group of people with severe disabilities getting older. There are more older people in a particular age group, largely because following the Second World War, we had a big baby boom. This is a particular group going through the system at the moment. And until recently, their life expectancy had been increasing. The other point is about demand in respect of people who do not have family members to look after them. Many people only have 1 or 2 children, and more people in the UK have none. And most people do not live with adult relatives. Increasing numbers in the UK live alone. So this is the demand side that anybody working in social care will be really familiar with in the UK. It's about older people, but not just about older people. And it's about people looking after family members, carers, but some people do not have family members. So the supply side affects the workforce. Our problems in social care with workforce have a very long history. It is nothing new. It is not related to COVID, but they are particularly acute now in 2 respects. The first is our increase in vacancies, and the second is our rapid turnover. And these are very, very difficult things to manage. Obviously, recruitment becomes really important, but no matter how much and successful you are at recruitment, if there is high turnover, you never stop recruiting. And indeed, you get to a situation where you simply cannot fill vacancies. In the UK, social care is a very important part of our labour market, so we really need to work with people who are involved in other parts of the labour market to understand what's going on. I've put the figures here saying that there's about 1.67 million jobs in social care and nearly 1 million care workers. That's huge numbers. But they are very different from many other parts of the workforce in that most of them work part-time. The great majority are female, and the average age is in the mid-40s. And my picture showing a young man is just showing you how atypical that is. This is the least typical home care worker you will see: young, full-time, male, and not, I think, in his mid-40s. Coupled with that is limited opportunities for progression, and I'll touch on that later. By progression, I mean progression in terms of career planning and having a job that you can build up your skills. I also mean progression in the way of getting more money to reflect your experience and your skills. So what did COVID do? COVID was dreadful for adult social care in the UK. We lost many thousands of lives in care settings and not in care settings. And indeed, we lost through death many people working in our health services, but also our care services. So these jobs have become more risky. It is not everybody who wants to work in social care because they fear that if there was another pandemic, they might be at risk. There are risk of infection, there are risk of stress, and so on. We know from our work now on PPE, personal protective equipment, illustrated here just by masks, that PPE has been uncomfortable, particularly in hot weather, but uncomfortable for women whose faces don't always fit the design of PPE equipment, uncomfortable when trying to communicate with people who are finding it very difficult to communicate, and uncomfortable if you are working a 12-hour shift. All of us who've worn PPE over the recent years know that it is uncomfortable, but many of us are not spending our whole day or our whole night living under a mask. I mentioned that there have been high numbers of deaths and infections. We don't know yet about the impact of what we are calling long COVID, the long experience of COVID symptoms, which we are only beginning to find out a little at the moment. We don't know what the experience of long COVID is in this workforce, but it probably is going to be quite high. Coupled with this is some great uncertainty about the management of risk. Almost every day there were instructions from the UK government, and I don't think it was alone in this, in telling people what they could or could not do during COVID. So not a very settled time. And the government at one point wanted everybody working in social care to have a vaccine, and if not, they could not work in the sector. This made a lot of people give up their jobs. And although the government has changed its mind on this, I think that generally that those people have not come back. The rewards of activities, turning to the more positive points, during COVID, we found out that people liked lots of things about social care, and these included activities with residents or people using services, having fun together, going on outings, social activities, and so on. But of course, during COVID, they stopped, and the emphasis was on infection control. Not surprising then, the workforce shows very high levels of mental health problems and burnout. And indeed, one of the problems that emerged was how they felt perhaps let down by some health services and had not been involved in disaster preparedness. I know that we often think that Hong Kong was much better prepared in that respect than the UK. So although there were some good points that many care homes were given more technology and indeed they were better appreciated, you can see that COVID did not assist the manpower or workforce problems that existed prior to it. So going to care home, going to social care and beyond COVID, let's see what the real problem is. The problem is that people are leaving their jobs, often moving to other providers, particularly for better pay. So the turnover rates fell down in COVID because perhaps people stayed out of loyalty, but today they appear to be increasing. Sickness levels have risen considerably. They rose during COVID. We don't quite know how the situation is developing, but these are seriously high sickness levels, moving from 5 days to nearly 10 days a year. And the reasons for turnover now include better pay elsewhere, working in a supermarket, but also easier work, better conditions, and perhaps feeling valued in a job other than care work. So just looking at the graph, because sometimes people like to see this in a very easy chart, you can see that our turnover rate before COVID was going up and has not improved, and our vacancy rate before COVID was going up and indeed is getting worse. I'm not including COVID figures in these charts because the COVID data, the COVID years, as we could call the last 2 years, have not been, the data isn't particularly good. So what are the solutions? The solutions are not new in relation to COVID. They cover particular areas about solutions that locally we are trying to set out, nationally we are trying to set out, and indeed each employer is trying to set out. The picture here shows an advertisement about social care, trying to encourage people to say that it's not just a question of cleaning. Here in the picture is somebody assisting perhaps a resident or somebody living at home to talk with relatives on a computer tablet. So social care is not just personal care. What are we doing? We're trying to get new pools of labour. And the pools of labour we're talking about are many and varied, but there is this always search for new pools of labour to try and get new people into the sector. The other solutions are higher wages, and wages have been going up, but perhaps not as fast as they should be. Then it is looking at better terms and conditions and the creation of career ladders, so that you can see that with work and a bit of experience, you can perhaps move from being a care worker to head of a unit to then a care home manager and beyond. And then lastly, changing the image. I'll touch on some of these now. So most of the evidence for taking on new pools of labour is, I'm afraid, only very promising. It isn't well evidenced. So all of these are ideas that go around in the UK time and time again. If only we could attract the following people. First of all, there's this great idea that we need to attract younger workers. And to do this, there have been efforts which have been moderately successful, such as asking other young workers to be care ambassadors, to talk to other people about why the job is interesting, why it makes a difference, why it sometimes can be quite fun, as well as hard work. So instead of people of my age telling young people to work in care services, perhaps it's better to have younger people doing this. And that, of course, is around improving the image in recruitment and indeed in career prospects. Secondly, we have gone for attracting people who have been in various roles that might be veterans, so perhaps retired people working in the armed services, perhaps people working in the police, fire brigade, or medical emergency services, and say that although you might have taken early retirement, why not pick up a new career in social care where you can use those skills and perhaps work with people rather than work with paper or data. So the potential to attract veterans, and indeed, as you can see, many veterans in this position would be male, so perhaps bringing more men into the profession. Thirdly, the potential to attract more people with disabilities. Not all disabilities mean that you can't do care work. There are some disabilities that perhaps are kept under control, and some care work jobs really suit people with disabilities, whether they're using a wheelchair, they've got a long-term health condition, or they have a neuro condition. And some part of care services may very well want that individual, and they could be attracted in, perhaps with financial incentives. In the UK, we are working now on the potential to attract refugees with the idea that care work may be a very good stepping stone to learning English, to meeting people, and perhaps meeting people who have a degree of empathy and sympathy with the position that the refugee is in. We have tried to attract former family carers successfully, but not to a great extent. So sometimes family carers want to give back, sometimes they never want to see a social care service again. So it is very individualized, but they have got a lot of experience in family care, so the door can be open to them if they so wish. And then, of course, the potential to meet people wanting to make a difference. In the UK, applications to nursing, to study nursing at universities have increased because I think in COVID, people saw that being a nurse, you made a difference. A lot of the publicity meant that nurses figured very centrally as telling a very positive story that they made a difference in the work that they did. And perhaps, as well as nursing, we can build on that making a difference image and statements to say that social care is like that as well. So other policy developments are run by government. These include changing our immigration laws. And here is an advert I took very recently from a website. It doesn't say Apple, it really, I think, means apply. They just got the slide wrong, but it says apply to join our team from anywhere in the world. So in addition to the UK's long ability to recruit international nurses to join our health service, we can now recruit people working as care workers with no professional qualification to come and join our social care system. So this is new. We survived a long time by having people from the European Union in social care because we didn't have any labour restrictions here. Now the UK is not in the European Union. We have enlarged our ability to provide permissions for people to move to social care from any part of the world, as long as it's ethically appropriate. So we work under the conditions that many other countries do, that we will not take professionals from very poor countries because that is unethical to do so. But in areas, in countries where there perhaps is an oversupply, and in Hong Kong, you are used to that by, like us, employing people from the Philippines in many ways, we find that as being ethically, many people find that as ethically appropriate. Old challenges. Here is a picture from our novelist Charles Dickens' time, in which some of these challenges related to caring for old people and poor people, and they are old challenges in social care. What is the main challenge? The main challenge just must be that other jobs pay more, other jobs which do not require professional qualifications, other jobs that are flexible, other jobs that are female dominated, other jobs that people find they can do if they have other responsibilities at home with children or with their parents and so on. The image of the work is not great, despite the adverts I've shown. There's no need to have adverts if the image is okay. You have adverts when the image is poor. It is universally regarded as low status to work in social care. One of the measures we always use is, does a member of the royal family work in social care? In the UK, they do not, but they are often seen in hospitals and so on. So I think we say that the status of work in social care needs to be improved. It is hard, physical and emotionally hard work, not surprisingly leading to more poor mental health among people who stay in it. And indeed, these risks mean that people leave. While people may not be doing much lifting at the moment because of the use of hoists and so on, it still is hard physical work to be moving equipment, to be working with individuals who need assistance, to be shifting furniture, you name it, there is a lot of physical work needed. And it is emotional work, particularly as more and more people are dying by choice in a care home than perhaps moving to hospital. I've mentioned that there is little extra reward for skills and experience, and here is the figure I pulled out recently, that you get an extra 6 pennies an hour more for being an experienced care worker than you do if you're a new care worker. And I'm sure none of us are in jobs in which that is the case. Sometimes things are inflexible and sometimes things are too flexible. So we have many people working in social care who are under 0-hour contracts, which means that they do not know what job security they have for the next week and cannot predict and plan their hours of work around their childcare and the care of their families and so on, because they're just not sure of the contract of the hours that they'll be working. And then lastly, for people working in home care, sometimes they are not paid for their travel. So although they may only be working, they may be traveling half an hour to get to somebody or 30 minutes, and they don't get paid for that. And so their income is very, very small. So current things that are happening, what's happening? Current efforts are around technology, changing people's jobs and their skills. And that's been very important for a sector which has largely been working on people on pens and paper, making commitments that qualifications gained in one provider can be accepted by another, and building up a knowledge and skills framework, because there has to be some sense about what knowledge and what skills people have. Trying to establish a program whereby people who are training to be registered nurses can do part of that training in social care through an apprenticeship model. Shaping our market by cooperation and sharing resources between small providers in particular, and a government wish to find out what are the best human resource practices and then indeed to make sure that these are supported. So just to then begin to wind up, I thought it would be interesting to tell you about the pay which people are getting, which I appreciate may seem different from a Hong Kong context. So I'm talking here about British pounds. This is £9 an hour, going up to £10 an hour. But as you can see, not very much if you're a senior care worker, a registered manager in charge of a very complicated business will not get very much at £16 an hour, and a nurse getting a little bit better, and indeed perhaps the shortage of nurses has affected that. Overall, what you will see, and what I have to tell you, is how uncompetitive this is compared to working in a supermarket, or indeed many of our hospitality industries, such as hotels and restaurants. The UK has a minimum wage, so everybody is notionally paid above that, apart from the travel issue. So that has been good, but it does mean that we have a very flat pay structure. So we have national publicity telling people that working in social care is great. You can make a difference to people's lives. We need to evaluate this to see whether or not these are attractive campaigns for people. Is this money well spent? And we need to look at our most recent policy moves, which include some investment on the workforce by providing more training and qualifications, providing people with occupational health support around physical and mental health, and to promote technology to see whether or not these will change matters and really reduce the severe problems that we've been facing in the past few months. So messages for today, I can very much not give you any lessons at all, but the messages I think from England are these. There is no magic wand to solve the workforce problems of social care. That there are many things that we can try, and some of them will work for some people in some places, in some ways. Secondly, pay does matter. This is a job where people are earning money to make a difference to their household and their family, and pay matters. But there are other types of reward which will assist pay, because we can perhaps alter the balance of reward as well. First of all is to give people work status, that this is a difficult, skilled job and should be respected. It is a matter of job quality, so we must take out the things that do not work for people in those terms and find out what they are. And that there are skills which are very easy to show, perhaps clinical skills, and there are also soft skills about relationship building, about getting people to do things that they don't want to do initially, but perhaps when they do them, they enjoy tremendously. So encouraging somebody to get out of bed, encouraging somebody to go on an activity, encouraging somebody to get in contact with their family. Those are soft skills, and they are incredibly valuable. So for most of us, it is making our mind up time about what are we going to do about this. And the reason why is that it's important for today, and that for almost all of us, it will be important for our tomorrows as well. We will be those people wanting care and support in later life. It will be our family, our friends, and our future selves. So of all things, I suppose, that we have on our agendas today, this one really matters, about making sure that the workforce is there to support ourselves, and indeed to have that workforce, we need to support them. So I'm going to stop now and thank you very, very much for listening and inviting me to take part in this tremendous event. I wish you well with all the sessions.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you for sharing with us the UK experience. Here in Hong Kong, we are facing very similar situations, and I believe it's the same for many other parts of the world. So your sharing And what the government and the non-government sectors have been doing to cope with the challenges will definitely inspire us on how we can do better. Thank you, Jill. So coming up, let's hear from our second speaker, Ms. Ada CHENG. Ada is the CEO of the Australian Nursing Home Foundation. She has over 30 years of experience in aged care management and a proven track record in strategic planning and service development. Currently, Ada serves on the board of the Ethnic Communities Council of New South Wales and the Positive Culturally and Linguistically Diverse Aging Network of the Federation of the Ethnic Communities Councils of Australia. Ada is a qualified social worker, holds a master's degree in community management, and is a graduate member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. May I now give the floor to Ada, please?
Thank you, Carmen. Let me share my screen. Yes, I'm very fortunate and blessed to speak after Professor Methodist because she already set the scene and shares. I think I can see both Australia and London or England share so many similarities in terms of the workforce. Today's our topic is talking about nurturing professional in a long-term care. I try to using my experience is mainly in the aged care, sharing about, like as a provider, as an operational level, how can we nurturing the professional? And in my presentation, I'm going to talk about, set the scene, talking about some statistics and issues facing the workforce in Australia, particularly in the aged care sector. And then I will try to talk about a little bit about my organization and what are the strategies that we use, try to attract and also to retain the workforce and also to inspire them and become an employer of choice and all the initiative that we do. And then at the end, I also want to talk about, the challenges that we face. For sure, everybody's do the same. So I think the statistic in Australia workforce is a little bit like London or UK. We also have like, basically when we do the recent statistic, there's about 366,000 employees are representing 3% of the Australian total workforce. It's one of the biggest and largest workforce in Australia involving in aged care. And particularly now we are facing population aging. It's going to be, the demand is getting faster, more people are really, we need to demand more workers to come in to join the workforce. Basically working in residential aged care home is about 235,000. And for community care, it's roughly about 130, but it's going to increase because the government is encouraging more in-home care. And that's like UK, the women mainly is that most of the care workers are women, medium age is about 46. And then most of them are employed as either we call personal care workers or we call community services worker. And then in residential care, 70% of the workforce is PCA, as what I just mentioned. It's about 15% are registered nurse. They're trained and 10% about enrolled nurse. They're more doing like a team leader's role. It's about only 1% is about our allied health profession, like the occupational therapist, dietitian, and all that. Interestingly, the statistic is about 1/3 of the workforce is born overseas and they speak another language other than English. And so, but interestingly is we just like every part of the world, workforce shortages is one of the third business problem. It's become a trend accelerated by the pandemic. And also recently, the research indicated that 85% of the Australian businesses reporting that labor shortage was preventing them to operate in full capacity. And the turnover of the employee really costing roughly like a US dollar, 1 trillion. It's a lot of cost, huge cost. And this is a very simple statistic that I get from the committee, the CEDA, the Committee for Economic Development of Australia. We have just based on the statistic last year, the financial year, 2021 to 2022, we lost 65,000 of people from the aged care sector. But just based on our population estimation, Basically, we need at least 8,000 people, additional worker to meet the international best practice standard. But the shortfall of the work is already 35,000. Imagine people continue like a tsunami leaving the workforce. It becomes a really huge problem for us. So the workforce management, in terms of for us as a manager, we can see there's so many challenges. On the top of the pandemic, the past 5 years of the World Commission into Aged Care Quality and Safety, I think overseas, internationally, people heard about, there's a big concept about talking about neglect, dignity, risk, and all that. Interestingly is, in actual fact, for my past experience, 30 years in Australia in aged care, we're talking about less than 10% of the aged care provider. They may be having care practices that may not be appropriate, or maybe they're not unintended based on maybe lack of resources or lack of training for staff and all that. But because of the big World Commission in the past 2.5 years, the attention by the media really projected a very poor image in the aged care industry. The nurses and also the care worker, they feel really burdened. They don't feel really recognized in the aged care workforce. And also, on the top of that, we since 2012, we started aged care reform, living longer, living better. But the reform, one after the other, really create a lot of turbulence in the sector. And the urgent funding is needed to fill the gap. Unfortunately, the government not letting more money, but they cutting costs. And in actual fact, the pressure is really, really tough on both the management and the front line. Not to talking about, increase the wages and all that. And also like the employee shortages is also due to, during the pandemic, is the employee sickness, burnout, absenteeism, changing employee, the work-life priority. During the full lockdown, some staff say, why I have to work my heart, work that hard for everyone, but not being recognized. They're thinking about, maybe I work in a restaurant work, I don't really worry, no emotional burden, And also the border restriction internationally also restricted overseas workers to come to join. And now some people, they are approaching retirement age, they will have the great resignation and great retirement plan. So all these have a big impact on the workforce. And on the other hand, I also identify that it's because of the unprecedented weight of the labor shortages. A lot of people in the management, the young talents, they're also thinking about it's a very big burden for them. They may be considering, maybe I need to go somewhere else, or maybe being headhunted, and the instability in the workforce become a big challenge for the management. So the other thing is about, this is like a summary of all the issues that faced by the management, the loss of revenue and servicing ability, and budget and profitability constrained. So no growth, or when you have the growth, you have to have a high risk. Productivity impact by the COVID and well-being, both for our client consumers as well as staff, and also the reforecasting and rostering become a big challenge. A lot of my facility manager and home care manager, they find it very stressful. Sometimes they even have a lot of like a panic attack when they receive phone call. They think, oh, staff are calling sick. Who is going to look after the older people? And when you're talking about workforce planning, it's so unusual. You cannot plan at all because it's unpredictable. It's so fluid, the workforce. And also you cannot have ability to optimize capacity. So things for me as like an administrator to consider, the aged care reform definitely create a lot of turbulence. At that time, I'm thinking maybe this is also time for us to talk about consolidation. Instead of adding human being onto the workforce, how can I do better workforce planning, streamline the workforce, use technology investment, and also consider board leadership? How can we think about, to motivate people continue on? It's not like singly I'm oversee everything, but I may be collaborated with people. The shared responsibility is something that we need to consider. The other thing is I also think about how can we better prepare the organization, prepare for all these changes. Talking about, the new aged care talking the first standard is about consumer choice and control. Definitely, we need to be a person-centered care. The consumer become the focus of our care. But how can I make sure the staff appreciate that and also understand this is the core duty? And also on the same time, it's about financial sustainability. Because when you're talking person-centered care, definitely the number of neighbors, or the workers placed on the floor have to be increased. The personal touch, the individual care, it become more for personal care. The third part is the most challenging. It's about how can we identify the value proposition for the team members. They need to understand the challenge faced by the management, but also appreciate why the organization, as a not-for-profit organization, we still marching on, we still help, we still support the value behind. So during that time, we also create a model of care, let the team appreciate and understand there's meaning behind, there's a purpose behind all this work. It's about engagement, it's about empowerment, and also about we as a forefront provider, if we want to be a model provider for the aged care sector, we need to consider consistency and continuity of care. No matter how, whether in pandemic or no matter how financial situation is so tight. So I'm talking about the organization. This is very quick introduction about the organization I work for. The Australian Nursing Home Foundation got 42 years of experience. It's a not-for-profit organization. We're roughly serving about 1,500 per day, covering residential care, community housing, daycare, we call seniors wellness center, home care, in-home care, 4-level. Equivalent to some people, they can enter into nursing home. We still provide the care in the home with complex care need, if this is what they want. And we also support family carers. Interestingly, because of the funding model, we are providing predominantly Chinese, Southeast Asian community. But because some model is multicultural, I also do brokerage services for 7 different languages, covering Assyrian, Arabic, Korean, Vietnamese, Italian, and Greek. But this is a small seniors wellness program. This is how create us. And this is our vision, to be a model provider that provide quality and culturally appropriate residential and community care. Our mission is to honor and respect everybody, like in a family, in a happy and caring environment. These are the values that we have. So you can see the strategic direction we developed it in about 2018, just a year, 1 or 2 years before the pandemic. We already identified people is one of our strategic goals. Very important is nurturing an agile and motivated team that support the well-being, happiness, and autonomy of people we served. The second one is our places, because 42 years now, we got a lot of facility getting old. We need to have a time is creating both physical setting is a better environment for older people and for staff, and also a nurturing environment that people feel attracted to. It's like a place that people like to come to use our service as well as to work for us. Right? The other one is our pathway. During the whole process, we identify the workforce issue will be a tsunami. That's why during that time, we already start building technology, IT, architecture of all this, as well as we need to consider good governance. We build a lot of clinical governance structure, reviewing the whole system to make sure staff understand the value behind and why we have to work smarter, not necessarily work, heavier workload, but how can we streamline the workflow? So this is how we do it. So this is the 4 services I already mentioned, the services that we cover. And this is our model of care. This model of care is not divided by me or other manager. It was a bottom-up process. We identify staff from different levels. They are PCA, they are nurses, they are, even, cleaners, whatever. We get them together and identify what are our core values, why you like to work for us. Then we eventually identify family is one of the concepts that they really like. That's why we treat everybody like a close and caring family. We speak your language because we have no specific services, and we honor our culture. We work things out together. The collaboration element is here. And then we love to celebrate and have fun. Have fun is important. And also, just like the fish philosophy, one of the training is you're having fun, you need to collaborate and all that. We challenge ourselves because there's never a smooth time. There's always challenges for us. But then we push ourselves to be innovate and collaborate, and also pursuing training. So we also committed to doing the best for you. That is why our model, and this is all imprinted in our heart and our mind. So when we build a team, we need to, from the top, like we have to shape the culture of the company, and all our facility manager, when they're being employed, they need to appreciate and understand the culture. If they think this is not the right thing for me, I like another type of working culture. I think it's a top at the like a more authoritarian model, and this may not be the place for them. So we do a lot of aptitude tests, particularly senior leaders. They have to appreciate, and we try to look into how can we invest into things that is, rather than paper, is people. We want to avoid people, staff wasting a lot of time, particularly junior staff, and particularly they are from Asian background. Their English is not good. If they're asking them to do a lot of written work, recording is challenging. So we look into all these areas. And when we're focusing on onboarding, induction, and on the job training and career progression, we identify when people come in, we always ask the same question: what do you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years? So we understand what are the things that these people like. It becomes like an essential steps that when we recruit, we already identify what are the things that this staff can progress. We need to create a space for the growth. And sponsoring the staff for training and mentoring program, we want to let them know we value you, it's so important. So the other thing is so important is the employee experience. We have a survey used by CarePage, which I'm going to illustrate later. We measure both customer experience, which is CX, and the employee's experience. These two are the most key successful factor when we want to be a good provider. So while we're doing the employee experience, we have so many ways to measure. The CarePage create a lot of template because they're based on the aged care industry. We are benchmarking with the other provider, and in-house, we're benchmarking from services to service to understand when the staff from induction, onboarding, in the middle, what are the issues, what are the challenges they say. We also want to identify the employee of the moment strategies. What are the things really make them feel good? And what are the things really make them feel bad? And what are the things we're lacking as an employer that we cannot provide to them? And also, we map the journey of every employee. We understand we have burnout time, things behind we need to dig into. So every year, when we do our annual appraisal, staff will be considered. They will be very heart-to-heart talk to their supervisor, identify issues and concerns. And also there will be always action plan to plan with the employee. They always ask the same question is, what do you expect next year? What are the growth? What are the things that you want to learn? And what will be your dream? And even I remember when we do the voice survey, one staff said that I wish my birthday, I do not need to work, but I cannot afford to do that. So eventually I make a modification. All staff will have a gift voucher on the birthday with the supervisor sending a very thank you note and say, I value you, whatever, Ada. And then they give me $20. Everybody have, including me or frontline worker, carers, whatever. But this is a little bit of appreciation. People know we cannot afford to pay 500 staff a big gift, but a little gesture is important. They feel like we love them, we value them, it's so important. The most important is I want them to appreciate and understand this is an employer of choice. I choose to work for NIHR. It's not because I just need money to work. So I just mentioned, this is the first example about CarePage, is to measure employees' experience. So we track a normal, like a customer journey. This is how we tell the staff. While we're doing all this customer service, we do the same for employee. And then we put in a lot of things like when they understand what are the customer experience will be measured, but at the same time, when we gather the employee experience, we do the same. So this is how I do the same, like from the recruitment, onboarding, everyday role. I do a lot of things like, for example, annually, at least I would do 1 to 2 CEO roadshow that I meet face to face, like a town hall meeting with my staff. They tell me at the cold face, Ada, we need this, the machine broke down, my computer not working. So I checklist all these. Eventually, every end of the year, I'm doing my KPI to them. I reported to them why I cannot do it or how I'm doing it. Do you like it or things? And at the time, is it good? So, and also we will have a lot of pulse survey. The pulse survey means besides the longer surveys of customer experience, occasionally, for example, I changed some of the system, care system we implemented. We will do a pulse survey, just ask the staff, how do you find about this change? Then I can understand that, you know, give me a heads up of the immediate feedback. And also some of the other creating new staff, you know, the new staff when they're onboarding 3 months and all that. This is all very essential. I believe everybody can read this later on because I try to concentrate more for the time. So with all these survey, it will be a lot of report that we will generate, and this report will share among middle management, senior management, and the board. And it become like an informal way to advise us how should we set and track targets, how can we create change, and whether staff will feel uncomfortable. And also we can identify a lot of at-risk area. It's like a traffic light system, red, you know, yellow or green, and then it's so good if we continue doing it. On the top of this, because we didn't purchase the other software, is the real-time comments, because we have another system called Folio, like a risk and incident reporting, a hazard reporting. Staff can anytime tap in and put the comment. They can make anonymous report and talking about something they're happy or they're not happy to us. So everybody understand in aged care, we reformed recently, and the whole Australia using the aged care standard, that X standard for both residential and community. Now we have only one universal standard. So you can see consumer dignity and choice is the middle. These are all the area. Every staff understand, besides this, we also understand this also related to how we support the staff to support them to provide the best care. So the feedback and complaint and all that is all included. That means while they're being engaged in survey, engaged in training, they're all meeting basic order compliance and the requirement by the government. It's all geared towards the same. The other example is what I'm talking about, the pathway, is how can we create something that can help the staff. I think Professor MANTHORPE will have no surprise for the person-centered software because it's originally from UK. This software is so beautiful. When they roll out in UK, it's very quick. A lot of aged care providers find it very efficient. And it was not designed for non-English speaking background. But luckily, when we engage using this software, we can easily use it to convert it into Chinese because they got the universal code. And then we can, for staff to type some simple note for communication across the team, they can type Chinese. So I can show you why. The reason why I committed to use this person-centered software is really, I want to improve more time in care rather than paperwork. Easy to use, staff is a touch screen. Everybody hold a mobile phone. I still remember when we first implemented, even we put on all the notices, some carers haven't visited the loved one for a long time. They complain, they say, you're stuck playing the iPhone rather than talking to my mom. But eventually they know there's a carer's gateway when these people evidencing care every day, and they can see my mom, what they have done in the day. They can see the whole date of care record because the staff, I'm showing you in a minute, how can it be done? For example, all the residents' profile is on the screen, but we divided the staff up in, for example, each wing, I only look after 6 or 8. So these staff, eventually, they can see if they having something, they just tap the face of, for example, is Ada, and then she attends something, she goes for toilet, or they have a cup of tea, and then they can do whatever they finish, the time, everything is locked in by time like an icon. And then at the end of it, they will ask for the experience of the the residents. Are you happy after the cup of tea? She will put a smiling face or flat or whatever. But all these eventually become care notes generated at the back of the system. So the staff, while they're doing it, they just tap, tap, tap. They're very easy. For example, 4-person playing mahjong is Ada, Carmen, Professor MANTHORPE. She just type until 2 o'clock they finish. And then how they happy, everybody waits, put the smiley face or whatever. And then if something happened, like for example, Ada feel very tired, and then she will put something more on, like go to sleep, Ada eventually went to bed. Something like that is all evidencing. But then the most beauty of it is all these care icon is easily understandable, and they just tap, tap, tap all this. And sometimes if they're not doing it, they can remind themselves, because if I know Ada got a special medication, those notes will be there. And under Ada's icon, you can see some of the quick notes. And if I come into next shift, I don't have to have so much handover time. I just carry the same tablet. I can see what had been done for Ada. Then I know what she has done, whether she missed any medication. People cannot change. Once they lock in, it's evidence for good. And also incident reporting. There are a lot of, because now we interface with a lot of software, like incident and accident. And we also have those icons that is about pain chat. If they're not uncomfortable, the staff can screen the face, and there's a pain chat machine showing them, whether she's in pain or whatever. All these become generated into care notes, and the RN can read it at any time. Yeah. So, and the resident responses about what I just mentioned. This is some of the images. If you want to create more, or you can even type some of the notes there. So this is the incident form that we saved. And then even while you are working in a particular wing, if you find you need someone, you can press a button and call the other helpers to come, instead of just based on nurse calls or just the Amber, whatever nurse call system. So we find they are very, very good. The handover note I just mentioned is very quick. You can see, easily. And then they can also generate note, and staff can put additional notes there. And then the beauty is some staff, the English may not be good. They may miss some of the word. Then they can type the Chinese. When the RN go through the care notes, they can correct for them. So this is some care monitoring. This is from the RN, sort of profile. They can see per residence what are the things they have done, what are the issue, the care plan, and things like that. Just a simple example. Yeah, the reason why we committed to use this, I know it's something at the very beginning, I got a very bad sort of comment from my colleagues. They say, maybe Ada not trusting us. They need us to evidence in care. They don't see the beauty. They don't want to be accountable what time I've done. But after 3 months, the whole story changed, because they feel that once I finish work, I don't worry because all my care has been done already. And also when their incident coming, we identify something, they can easily trace the evidence and they find it out, and they can easily preparing, progress notes or, and also the other thing is operational efficient, particularly for people from non-English speaking background, writing care notes is challenging for them. Yeah. So this is what I want to share. The basic behind also is because PC software improved the teamwork. In the past, the RN write their own notes. They depend on the PCA, explain to them, oh, what have you done to Mrs. So-and-so, Mr. Chen, Mr. Wong, whatever. But now they base on this. When they only have ideas of information, they can have more time for case conferences. They identify, oh, Ada used to have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, have, her eating diet, her hidden pattern change. They can call the team, whoever look after these 8 people together, they can discuss what are the way we can improve the care. So it's very efficient, and also a very communicatable, a good system that communication is very good, either up and down and across the organization. I find it very, very good. Sharing information, even with the allied health, for example, if there's an incident, the ambulance man come, we can show them, the care pack, this PC software, tell them what has gone. They say, did he have some meals or before or any drinking or anything? We can show the person quickly, easily. And also sometimes, even if you have criminal case, these are very good. It become evidence in the court. So besides talking that, this is about technology. This is about how we create things to help staff. But basically, aged care work is a physical chores for a lot of staff. We care about them. So a few years ago, we started a wellness program. When you're committed to screen 500 staff, but I'm not saying everybody have to go, we encourage them, everybody is covered by the company. We do bit by bit, every staff being reviewed, and they understand the posture, what are the physical, particular people in the 45 to 60, that range. These findings are all confidential. The physio assess them and help them to set a goal. So we did run a few classes, the posture class, Zumba classes, whatever they like, Tai Chi classes. It's about the staff. If they identify, we create, even though we cannot use staff time, but during the shift time, we know morning, afternoon shift, the people can attend something. We offer to them for free, even though it's additional resources. But I know if you invest into wellness of the staff, they feel being valued, and they also can look after themselves to avoid more workplace injury. This is very important. So we did this for the staff. The other kind of engagement is, as I mentioned, the CEO roadshow, I always did, and also the employee award, both internal, in-house, that every team, they have the angel of the day, or, the employee every 6 months. It depends on, I give all the liberty to the leader, the local leader. They identify, we give them a budget, and they can motivate the staff. And some of them, they decided they create their own voting system, or some is by the supervisor. I let every team to work out. If I have grievances, I will find it out, and then we will understand, find another solution. It's all about trying out, and then it's about consultation, it's about collaboration. I mentioned about voice survey, long services award. We give them beyond the long service award money they give. We also have the entitlement. We give them, whoever served 10 years, a small token of appreciation, maybe $100, even a small money, but in the annual Christmas party, the staff feel, I achieved something, working 10 years. It's a big, invisible, ring on the top like an angel. Birthday voucher I mentioned, buddy system is always that. No staff will be working by themselves alone. We always use buddy system when they started, and then make sure they know the job. And also, we even thinking about, but because of COVID, we don't have enough staff. We want to mentor them. We want to have someone, they are the buddy mentor. They are really good. If they can achieve mentoring 10 staff, pass through probation, we give them a special reward. But because now we really run sort of staff, we cannot roll out this program. A lot of these ideas not come from me or the senior executive. Sometimes I ask the staff, I talk to them, and they give us advice. The other external engagement is like, I encourage staff to join the Next Gen. Next Gen is for younger leaders externally. I encourage them to join the industrial groups. They create this Next Gen leaders training, as well as they become a forum for them to learning from the other facility or learning from the other field. Because some of our staff, they are come from a non-English speaking background. This is also a arena for them to feel more comfortable to work in the mainstream and talking to the people, which is good. The Next Gen, not just talking about manager or nurses, they also cover catering, other businesses too, depends on whether your staff really keen to join. They are also, we call the lifestyle team. They also got this Next Gen group. I did sponsoring 2 staff joining the mentoring program. There are this under the laser program, a lot of CEO like us, we can volunteer our time to support people from the other facility. It's like a 6-month program, and the mentor and mentee meet. They can be online, they can be over the phone, meet regularly to sharing strategies and sharing their challenges, because this is all Chatham House rule. They are all within the mentor and mentee, but they can find a new insight, understand it's not necessarily my manager got issue with me, it's because they can see things from different perspectives. And they found this mentoring program very good. I do have a home care manager. After that 6 months, you can see it's nothing because of the work condition. In actual fact, it's the industry. You know, she accepted, and she got a very good rapport with the supervisor, and she come back, she built the team well. Yeah. And now the other one is, I think a lot of people want to know, how can the government or the sector attract people to come? We recently just joined two peak organization. Peak organization means the organization representing aged care provider. One is called AXA, Age and Community Services Australia. The other one is Leading Age Services Australia. They merged in together. Now it's called APRA. It's called the Australia Age and Community Care Provider Association. So they now create a platform that people can register, even they are non-member. They are ordinary people, they want to look for a job. They can put in their name and set up a profile, look for job opportunity. This platform can create for both employer and employee, and they can look for job, or they can, the employer can also advertise the position here. It's very good. But unfortunately, it's only the younger generation for my company, because the older generation, maybe computer and English may not be well. So for us, when we try to attract people, we advertise through the Chinese media or the multilingual media, and we try to do what we call the work cafe. Like people who are interested, we advertise in the newspaper on a Sunday. Our HR manager or HR assistant just sit in the cafe, give them a free coffee. People want to talk about aged care. This is how we engage ordinary people who want to try out aged care. Volunteer is also a very good platform. They always come, and then when they find out this is the job that I like, we encourage them. When those volunteer, they, in actual fact, some of them, they may be unemployed, they want to look for a job. So there's a lot of channels. So, and this is also I just mentioned about workforce planning. The association is now helping the industry. We need to do smarter. How can we do workforce? And particularly now the government requires us to have the care minutes, 215 care minutes per day. The care minutes from RN, PC, personal care worker, they need to add up to 215 per day per the facility. So there's a lot of challenges. So the industry, we have to work together collaboratively, work out our workforce planning, and we also collaboratively talking to the government. Will you support our work value case? Because our most of the time, everybody understands aged care worker being paid very low. We are advocating according with the union, all sector, all level. We are fighting for the Fair Work Commission. They already endorsed, but whether the new government will support it is another issue. So these are mainly, I want to showcase the screen look, how they look like. So I think it's really the end of my presentation. This is how the website to see when they registered. So I think it's a very good way if we can make it multilingual, because I just mentioned 2/3 of the people are come from a non-English speaking background. So it's so important. And they are got the RN nurses program. I think every part of the world is start doing it. It's so important. Besides just taking people from overseas, I think we want to encourage a younger generation locally. They can learn to join the RN sector. This is the Aged Care Employee Day. It was started by one of the aged care provider, but now it become, the past 5 years, become the industrial-wise celebration. We do it all. We set the 7th of August is the Aged Care Employee Day.
It's really wonderful. I really hope Hong Kong has one.
It's about the industry, and this is the poster that we do. And then during the whole month, we put it out. We encourage the family to say thank you to the staff. They feel good, you know, is important. Yeah, and the challenges, but I say, is the paradigm shift. Before, when you're talking aged care, it's mainly about welfare. But now from our generation now, we see it has to be consumer driven under a deregulated competitive market. How can we create like a business space that people enjoy? This is where they belong to. How you make yourself to become the employer of choice is very important. As a CEO, it's the challenge to be innovative. I think the basic key word for me, I always say, is with a big ear and a big heart. If you be engaging, if you be ready to consult staff and understand and do whatever you can, I know some may not be achievable. Even something is too expensive, you explain to them. If they step into your shoes as a leader, they understand your challenge, you will feel good about it. Yeah. And the other thing is we also share with the middle management about the transformational. They have to understand it's not just a work, it's about a whole team, a whole ecosystem, that how we work better. The culture, the policy procedures, things about how everybody willing to take a part in building the new future for us, right? And the most important for any business, you have to calculate your costs, work out, I know everything need money. If I value my staff, I need to put the well-being of the program. So I talk to the board, you need to spend this money so I can maintain a healthy workforce. Things about how you reward the talent. It's not about just paying money, it's about how you make them feel, you invest in them and they will be loyal to you. Yeah. So this is how the cost benefit, as what I say, this is how a normal solution, but I just put out something that we need to identify area and cost of turnover. I didn't add on many staff on the system, but I just find system to help them, and identify why people leave us. And then I need to find out what are the solutions, let the voices come, let the ideas come from the horse's mouth. The staff tell you. That's why every staff, when they leave ANHR, they have to do an exit interview. No one will be excluded, because I want to, even though it may be not good comment, but you are ready to open your mind and open your heart to listen. That is so important. So this is about, I focus on putting the brand is important, the leadership, the performance, the work, the basic, the company practices is very important. You have to make sure you've got good communication. You have to let the staff understand your customer focus. The diversity and the inclusion is important. You have to have a lot of things. Even in Chinese culture, Mandarin and Cantonese speaker come from different parts. There's a lot of diversity issue. That's why it's like a melting pot. You need to show respect. If you want to do all these positive things, you have to look into the system. I put it here so the other provider can use it to, as like a effective thinking. So more things can be done. I think if you can encourage more staff to do certificate courses and develop more national recognized, at the moment, the government already start thinking about the aged care workforce strategies. We can discuss while we have the Q&A time. Yeah. So these are the things that I like to, this is my last note. If you want to contact me, yeah, more than happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ada. In the face of manpower shortage in long-term care, I think the industry or the service providers are definitely the first one to be affected. Your profile, experience, and practice wisdom are really invaluable for us to learn from. According to a report from OECD, growth in the number of long-term care workers has been outpaced by the growth in the number of older persons. I think what Professor Manthorpe and Ada shared have clearly reflected such a phenomenon. The COVID-19 pandemic, which has hard hit the long-term care sector, has indeed highlighted the structural problems of long-term care, especially the insufficient staffing and skills, of which have a toll on the quality of care. So indeed, there are lots of challenges ahead, and we need to put our heads together to think of creative solutions. Having said that, let's learn more from our speakers through a panel discussion on your views in resolving the manpower shortage and how we can nurture the workforce in the long run. First, I would like to ask Professor Manthorpe, manpower shortage for long-term care is definitely a global issue, and the governments around the world are working on it. But do you think your government in UK is doing enough? Or is there anything you wish the policymakers could do more?
Yes, thank you for that. And indeed, thank you to Ada for really explaining some of the work that's happening in Australia. There are many, many commonalities. What can governments do? Governments can do quite a lot. And one of them is to develop a workforce strategy for social care. It is easily to say that, but it has to be done. I think that is our key message from the UK and from England in particular, that if you have a workforce strategy, it enables people to discuss and debate and agree the ways ahead. Otherwise, we move around thinking of good ideas, new ideas and so on, and perhaps never get to address the real issues. So we would like a strategy to set out things like how much we should and could rely on immigration. Our strategy can also talk about the ability to have good occupational health in very small providers who cannot afford and do not have any human resource function, let alone an occupational health. How will that be resourced? And then, of course, while we talk about the aging population, the older people are not a problem. We are delighted to have more older people. And indeed, some older people are very effective in working in long-term care and indeed in volunteers and assisting care providers be the places that they want to be. So I think that there are many ways of moving the debate about seeing older people as a problem, and talking about this is a great gift for the 21st century to have our family members living with us and for so long. And that's where we all want to be, isn't it? There is only one alternative to an aging society, and that is a society that sadly we have in some parts of the world where people die very early and far too much.
Yes, agree.
What about Australia? Ada,
Yes.
is there any government policies in Australia?
Yes. In actual fact, Australia government also do the same. In 2018, they start to create the aged care workforce strategies. In actual fact, I can share screen. I did put in the slide at the end of it, so you can have just have a quick look. These are the 14 of them. Basically, it's talking about create a social change campaign to reframe the caring. Voluntary industry code of practice, they want to make sure everybody are good, reframing the qualification and skills, develop some new career pathway, because it's no longer just like a job, it should be a career for them. The culture of feedback and continuous improvement, a new industry provide approach for workforce planning, including skills and modeling, skill mix modeling. How can they implement new attraction and retention strategies? Revise workplace relationship framework, and also the most important is about the interface between aged care and acute care. There's so many things is because of the acute care not taking them enough. A lot of our staff are at home, in-home care, they really heavily load and at risk too, in some way. And also improve the training and recruitment practices by the government. For me, I can say it's the injection of resources. We can create the most beautiful strategies without resources and money. Who can do it, And they're also talking about Aged Care Center for Growth and Translation Research. And also they talk about staff remuneration review. We are doing it, we've done it already, but whether the government ready to commit for the work value case is another issue. The most important is they want to transitioning the industry and the workforce to a new standard that we are already in. But the work behind is because of no money. I still remember when we have the reform, aged care reform back in 2013, there was 1.3 billion money that government promised to do for aged care workforce development, but less than 6 months, all the money is paid for the subsidies for aged care. Residential, because the government don't have enough money, they drag those money from training, because training always to government is they can wait. But in actual fact, it is. Now when we in the tsunami, I think they regret it. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I think this is really, really a big problem that requires collaboration among the government, the industry, the civil societies, or indeed everyone to work out innovative solutions. On this, people are saying that technology may be a way out. What do you think, Ada? Do you think care by robots will be the ultimate solutions, or do you see any limitations?
Yeah, I personally, I really like human touch. I think robotic will be helpful in a way. It's many all the chores for manual handling, for example, the laundry work, taking out food from the kitchen, something like that, or maybe just like a gadgets for, you know, like a little pet that they can do. But I don't think robotic can replace human being, you know, to do care, because I found out from the frontline experiences that the past 30s, I see older people like the touch. They like human being talking to them, not robots. At least when I'm, you know, approaching aging, I don't want to be served by robots.
Yeah, really.
Professor Manthorpe agree with me, particularly a social work background, right?
Indeed, I do. But I think we have focused too much on robots and too little on products. To me, it is absolutely astounding that the care for people who lose continence in old age is to put people in nappies. You know, surely within the 21st century, we must have better products, whether they are products that are technology-based and so on. I think that's fine, but we need perhaps to less think about technology as the answer and to address what are the problems to which technology would give us an answer. So for me, continence is a key one. That is what many care workers spend a lot of their time doing, is helping people with continence problems. If there was a technology invention, or indeed its slight improvement, it is in those problems that we need to address. So I think let's not think of the solution and then find the problems that it can address. Let's think of the problems and then work backwards to say what could be done. And I would put continence as top of my list. I think COVID has assisted us in better infection control. And we know that there have been many problems with infections in homes and in people's own homes, such as flu, for example, that we probably will find technology, better forms of cleaning, that we will all use. So what's good in long-term care is often good for the rest of society. And I think we have learned a lot from our disability colleagues as well. What is good for people in having a lift at a station or a lift in shopping facilities is useful to young mums, it's useful to people with luggage, it's useful to everybody. So as well as technology for certain problems, I think that making all environments age-friendly is where technology could also assist, and that will help everybody. There isn't probably any point in thinking about age-related technology. It has to be for everybody's use, and my grandchildren make as much use as Alexa as their great-grandparents will make a use of Alexa. So probably less segmentation of the technology market might be an approach. But I'm sorry to mention continence, but my goodness, if somebody could make changes to continence, how that would revolutionize the world would be incredibly important for men, for women, for care workers, for family members, and indeed for people themselves who experience a loss of continence as very, very undignified and really, really attacks their sense of self. So a great plea to anybody who's listening, if you want to do something, please do assist in continence work.
Yes.
Fully agree. Sorry, Ada.
Carmen, we just mentioned about the manual handling is, for example, if there's some lifting, need two person, then maybe one human being with a very comfortable robot to support. That is achievable too, you know, like a big chores, heavy load, because we protect our worker from those heavy workload in manual handling, hurting their back. There's a lot of things we can creatively, but now in the pandemic, we do a lot of technology, like when we check in, used to you have a staff to do all these declare, but now it's face recognition. It saves us a lot of time, right? We can creatively think about a lot of ways.
Yes. Fully agree. Technology is definitely important, but long-term care is still a human service. So our labor force is still our prime, support. So talking about training just now, is there anything that in your country has been doing to groom passion and empathy in the younger generation? so that they're more willing and or less resistant to take care of the elderly? Ada, do you have any intergeneration programs to nurture the youngsters' passion in Australia?
We usually open our nursing home for those, because in Australia, the education system, when they're in year 10, they need to have 1 week of work experience. We always open this for our students, and we always invite the high school students to come in to do performances when they do music and all that. Now we recently planning to build a nursing home really close to the secondary school, and they got a very musical band. We make a signing MOU with them. They can every week do the practices in front of our older people. I think this is good. Yeah.
Yes. How about in UK? Is there any measures to attract the younger generation?
Yes, and there are several, but like Ada, I think that these have to be worked out locally. We talk about places such as care homes and schools now as being anchor institutions in our communities. They are places whereby they're not just for current pupils or residents, they are for the whole community. And I think it's framing that as a very important part, that these are organizations to which we will turn. And in Hong Kong, you have very similar community centers, which
Yes.
are anchor institutions for everybody. They will be there when there's a pandemic or a flood or a fire and so on. I think the other thing that we need to say in social care is that we have often taken people who do not have academic qualifications, and there is a tension between wanting a lot of training by people who do not have much literacy and who do not have much numeracy. And fantastic care workers can have difficulties in those areas, and we mustn't rule them out by talking all the time about training, because they have not had good education at school, perhaps. They have had difficulties. And if we all the time talk about training, we will put off people for whom they do provide that human company, they provide the fun, they provide the problem solving, they provide the laughter in a care facility. So let's be very careful about overemphasizing training for people for whom that is not acceptable. For many of us watching this, we like training. We like to do it. We like to be involved. We regard training as very, very positive. But I think, as Ada said, it's important about listening to people for whom training is a very, very scary thing. So just getting that balance right. And if somebody comes with no academic qualification, but fantastic values, that's the person we want to hire. And they can flourish in many ways. A person with no academic qualifications who wants to work with the laundry is absolutely fantastic. So
that's right.
So let's make sure that we encourage that individual.
I can also quote two examples during the pandemic. We create some position we call a connection ambassador, because during the home lockdown, or when this is in the big, community lockdown, we realized that older people need to communicate with family, but our staff are not good enough, not enough hands to support them. So we recruit some people, they come in as a connection ambassador. They just take the iPhone connected, and then they do help people to do all the screening, the red test and all that. So eventually the government also committed a program called Partners in Care. Because of long-term lockdown, people only gone with window visit and all that. Eventually they start to train family member who willing to be coming in, not just serving their own loved one, but the others as a group, right? So they're being trained with manual handling, infections control. They're being treated, even they are volunteer, but they're being, honored as partners in care. And people say they are the angels coming to support us. So this is a good initiative.
We have more angels. Yeah, I think there may be a related questions when we talk about labor force. Just now, both of you have mentioned about foreign workers. But I also read from the OECD report that some service recipients maybe reluctant to be to receive the care provided by foreign workers, especially personal care, and sometimes even cause workplace discrimination. What are your views? What are your experience? And are there any solutions? How about Ada first?
Yeah, okay. To me, because I come from, I used to be a cross-cultural trainer. I'm big on talking about, it's not about race or culture. It's about you treat everybody as an individual. You don't label a person because Ada is yellow skin or she's a Chinese. Maybe when I was in Australia, a lot of people think I'm from Korea. And some people think I'm Japanese. Even I went to Japan for holiday, they say, they talk to me in Japanese. So to me, I always believe it's about desensitized, to be culturally sensitive, to be understanding. Even, like Chinese from Hong Kong, from Taiwan, from mainland is so different. It's about the respect, treating everybody as an individual, but not putting labels on or putting stigmas on, or Chinese usually like this or whatever. And the other thing I believe is sometimes it's a fear of unknown, because a lot of older people, for example, we used to have a lot of islander serving in, the residential aged care. If they say, oh, do you want someone from that background to help you? The older people will say, no, I don't want them to show me. But it's about how the organization, when they bring in the person, train the person to be culturally sensitive and start with a joke and then go with someone, buddy shift with an Asian lady, with an Islander worker, then they will start to know, oh, she's very lovely. She tried to learn a few words of Chinese, ni hao ma or something. This is how we break the ice and let them understand she is not from Fiji or whatever, but she is a caring, lovely lady. Even we cannot speak the language, body language can help. It's about how we do the induction, how we break the ice, how we learn to make your organization to be culturally competent. Not just the staff, the organization structure have to do the same. There's a lot of things you need to make sure, no discrimination in terms of practices, in terms of setting, language, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, fully agree. Skills can be trained, but passion is very important. As long as that person know what color they are, if they have the passion to care, I think we should groom them. So how about in UK, is there any discrimination in the workplace?
Oh, yes, of course. But I think one of our learnings from this is that how important it is for managers to talk about these things, and that as well as managers talking to their staff, managers need to talk to each other, and groups of managers in a locality, or perhaps with a particular company or care providers. It is very, very important to retain managers and to enable them to talk about the things that matter, because a big problem with human resources in your care provider will take up many hours of a manager's time. So just to make that plea for managers to have the opportunity to share in confidence strategies, problems, thinking, sharing. We talk peer-on-peer management experiences. They don't always need an outside facilitator. It doesn't need to be expensive, but to just protect managers' time so that they can talk to each other. And we know that a good manager makes the difference to a care provider if wages are the same, terms and conditions are the same. And a lot of people in care services say that they don't work for the company, they work for the manager. And what an important, responsible job that is, and how really we need to treasure our managers, train them up, reward them, enable them to help out when another manager is off sick, but really to build that management skill and expertise in long-term care. And indeed, they're often the first person that a relative sees, and the skills of dealing with distressed or angry or guilty family members is another skill that is part of those soft skills, as well as their ability to manage the finances and the laundry and the roadworks and the IT and all the things that get on their responsibility radar.
Yes. That's true. I always say aged care manager are jade of all trade.
Yes, yes. So besides foreign workers, I learned from what Jill's sharing that you're trying to recruit more men into the workforce.
Yes.
How successful is it? And is there any tips that you can share with us? Because we do want to, recruit more male workers into our industry.
Yes, it's an interesting point, isn't it, that this is such a female-dominated industry. Yeah. And that's great because we have great female leaders, and women have really shown how they can manage responsibility and just be able to get on with very complicated jobs. But we want men for two reasons, or maybe more than two reasons. First of all, we have probably more men now receiving long-term care than we ever did.
Yeah.
They are living longer, and indeed many of them don't have family members, so we must reflect that in our workforce. Equally, men can do different things and just add a diversity to the workforce that is not often there. So we want men of all with all backgrounds and no backgrounds to come into social care. We think that that might alter the status a bit more, but we don't want it really in order to have a status. We want it because it will enrich the abilities of staff to be different, to reflect the communities they serve. So it's about diversity, it's about inclusion, and it's about offering men another career choice. They can be caring individuals. They don't have to do typically male roles. And I think we've probably seen in both nursing and in teaching that you do end up in difficulties if you only become a female profession.
Yes.
How about Ada? Are you
I
successful?
agree. Yes. Interestingly, one of our best home care worker rated by residents or consumers are male. And also interestingly in our culture, all the male workers are positively discriminated. They're really our favorite. All the staff like to work with them, and because I think remember I talk about the family values that we try to nurture, we care everybody. So when we have a male member, we always say, oh, you are so unique. We need to treasure you. Make sure you bring more people. Yes. And in our company, we got the incentive program. When you bring your friends in, when they pass the probation, we give them a bonus for the person who introduced the person. So we always find male workers say, bring your brothers in.
That's good. That's good.
That's fine.
Well, thanks a lot. Thank you both, Jill and Ada, for really enlightening us with your comprehensive elaboration and your strategic insights. I think we all agree that to tackle this huge problem, the manpower shortage in long-term care, must be a concerted effort, and innovations are very important. What you have shared have really inspired us to think outside the box and to find new ways to tackle these challenges and to find new solutions. Here we are coming to the end of this session. May I thank you once again, especially our two speakers, Jill and Ada, for sharing your country's example and recommendations in nurturing and empowering long-term care professionals, eventually providing better care to our older generation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.